As Africa's leading defense news portal, DefenseWeb aims to give you the latest updates on African defense, the South African National Defense Force, and the defense industry. In this week's edition, the United Nations Force Intervention Brigade in the Democratic Republic of Congo gets a troop boost, Zambia showcases new military hardware, human rights abuse is rife in terrorist-torn Cabo Delgado as Mozambique struggles to contain the insurgency, and the Southern African Development Community gives its thumbs up for a military force to Mozambique. In SANDF news, Cuban mechanics are refurbishing Olifant tanks and are not a security threat, according to Defense Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula. The SANDF is moving from a mandate-driven to a budget-driven defense force. The Department of Defense is attempting to regain lost skills. The SA Navy Hydrographic Office marks 70 years of service, and soldiers tasked with border protection are arrested. In industry news, Denel Dynamics aims to pay 30% of June salaries. In African defense news, 4-country troop boost for FRB. The imminent arrival of South African, Kenyan and Nepalese troops, along with Tanzanians already on the ground, will boost MONUSCO's Force Intervention Brigade FRB in ongoing efforts to curtail ADF, Allied Democratic Forces, activities in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a senior UN representative in the Central African country said. Earlier this month, the Joint Operations Division of the SA National Defense Force said a quick reaction force drawn from an infantry formation battalion was completing mission-ready training ahead of the continental deployment. The arrival of new additions to join the FRB signify a new turn in the hunt down of ADF. Kasim Diagne, the UN Secretary General's Deputy Special Representative in the DRC, said during a visit in Bunia in Ituri province. Zambia showcases new military hardware during military parade. The Zambia National Defense Force has paraded previously unseen military hardware in the capital Lusaka, including truck-mounted mortars and armored personnel carriers. The country held its National Defense Day on the 13th of June to celebrate the founding of its military on the 13th of June 1976. Amongst the military equipment on display during the parade were half a dozen Spear Mark II mobile mortar systems mounted on Tata 4x4 military trucks. Spear is a vehicle-based soft recoil 120mm mortar developed by Elbit Systems. Another item of Israeli supplied weaponry was Elbit Systems Atmos M46 self-propelled howitzers, which were also not to be in Zambian military service. The Atmos M46 features a Russian M46 130mm howitzer mounted on a 6x6 Tatra chassis with an armored cab. 6 were seen in the parade. 3 Elbit Hermes 450 unmanned aerial vehicles were also towed past. These were acquired in 2016/17. Also on display were 2 Elbit Skylark unmanned aerial vehicles. Other previously unseen equipment observed during the parade included Rapier surface-to-air missile systems towed by Seymour Musketeer 4x4 armored vehicles, and around a dozen Gaz Tiger armored personnel vehicles operated by the Special Forces. Israeli-made small arms were also seen being carried by the Zambian Army Special Forces Group in the form of RWR Taver assault rifles fitted with grenade launchers and Galil sniper rifles. The Zambian Army was already known to use Galil Ace rifles. Human rights abuse rife in terrorist-torn Cabo Delgado as Mozambique struggles to contain insurgency. Human Rights Watch (HRW) has documented several human rights abuses in the now infamous Cabo Delgado region of Mozambique. War crimes such as beheadings, including of children, women kidnapped for slavery and sexual abuse, destruction of schools and hospitals and houses being burnt down with people still inside, are being reported to HRW from some of the hundreds of thousands of people that have already been displaced by the insurgency. Zenaida Machado, senior researcher at HRW, said she is additionally receiving negative reports about the Mozambique Armed Defense Forces. This includes attacks on journalists, unlawful arrests, execution, intimidation of activists, and allegations of indiscriminate bombings. Machado revealed these reports in a webinar hosted by the Mail and Guardian and International Crisis Group (ICG) on the 17th of June. The webinar was centered around what needs to happen to prevent a new jihadist front. I have spoken to women who cannot sleep because they still remember the moment their children were taken away from them or because they were still separated from them and worried where they are, Machado said. 75% of the displaced persons are women and children, according to HRW. The full report can be found on our website. SADC thumbs up for military force to Mozambique. An as yet unknown number of soldiers and other military personnel from an unknown number of Southern African Development Community countries will be sent to Mozambique on an unknown date to combat terrorism and acts of violent extremism in Cabo Delgado. That's the gist of a communique following the 3rd Regional Bloc Summit on the problems Mozambique is experiencing at the hands of the insurgent Islamist group Alu Sana wa Jamaha in Cabo Delgado. Violence at various levels of intensity has been going on in the East African country's far northern province for 4 years, peaking in March when Palmer fell to the insurgents who seized the port of Mozambique and saw international energy giant Total shut down construction operations on a major offshore gas field allied extraction plant. The still-to-be-assembled regional bloc standby force will reportedly have as its major component 3 light infantry battalions supported by a pair of special forces squadrons. Attack and other helicopters, maritime patrol aircraft, submarine and maritime patrol vessels are mooted for the SADC force said but not confirmed to be in the region of 3,000 strong. And in SANDF news, Cuban mechanics refurbishing Olifant tanks. Eyebrows were raised in some defense and military circles following an Operation Tusano presentation to the Portfolio Committee on Defense and Military Veterans. Piquing the interest of at least some serious South African defense observers was the number of tanks said to have been repaired by Cuban military mechanics and technicians deployed in South Africa under the Project Tusano flag. Rear Admiral O.B. Matwetwa's presentation, among others, indicated the Cuban contingent repaired 7 Olifant Mark II tanks and 84 of the older Mark I tanks. A reliable source told Defense Web the SA Army's current active infantry is 24 Olifant Mark IIs with 133 Olifant Mark 1A/1Bs in storage, giving the junior flag officer's statement a ring of truth. The majority of those mothballed are Mark 1As, in all probability housed at Tempe military base in the Free State. Open source information shows the only active tank unit in the SA National Defense Force, 1 SA Tank Regiment, has about 30 tanks operational and available. The unit is based in Tempe, unofficial armor headquarters of the SA Army, and again, according to the open source information, consists of 3 tank squadrons, each with 12 main battle tanks. Cuban military mechanics are, in addition to working on refurbished wheeled vehicles, Roy-cut armored vehicles and SAML trucks, now doing the same for tracked vehicles. These will, in all probability, not see active service with the possible exception of training, Defense Web was told. Cuban military mechanics, not a security threat, says Mapisa-Nqakula. There is no need for concern about any compromise of security in the National Defense Force regarding what Cuban military mechanics and technicians are seeing and working on. This reassurance comes from the senior civilian public representative in the Defense and Military Veterans Ministry, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula. The call to not be worried was part of her response to a parliamentary question posed by Cobus Marais, the Democratic Alliance Shadow Defense Minister. Mapisa-Nqakula told Marais Project Tusano, the joint Cuban/South African agreement authorizing Cuban military personnel to be and work in South Africa, was not being extended to the SANDF operational matters. She assured Marais only basic maintenance and utilization at technical level information was exchanged with the SANDF members to ensure proper servicing of equipment developed with the Cubans as part of skills transfer. Elaborating on what Cuban expertise means for particularly those involved with the maintenance and repair of military vehicles, Mapisa-Nqakula said it assisted in building internal capacity. SANDF moving from mandate-driven to budget-driven defense force. Minister of Defense and Military Veterans Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula believes that the South African National Defense Force is moving from being a mandate-driven defense force to a funding-driven defense force, meaning the SANDF is now driven by what its funding allows instead of what mandate it has been given to it. A reflection of this can be seen in the Department of Defense not reaching the 2015 Defense Review milestones. On the 21st of May, 3 days after Mapisa-Nqakula delivered a budget speech, the University of Stellenbosch held a virtual think tank session that investigated the future of what a budget-driven SANDF might translate to. The Department of Defense for the 2021/2022 fiscal year will have to work with the budget that is 0.86% of the GDP, or 46.2 billion rand. This is a 14% decrease from the previous year. Since 2015, the bulk of the discussions in National Treasury have been centered around the Defense Review and dealing with compensation of employee challenges within the Defense Force, said Mashudu Bidza from the Public Finance Division of National Treasury. The reality is that there was just no money. It was not affordable to implement certain milestones of the Defense Review. Bidza then posed the question of whether the SADF should still be in the Democratic Republic of Congo under the MONUSCO peacekeeping mission, saying the resources spent in the DRC could be reallocated to other security challenges closer to home, like the current situation in Mozambique. The sentiment in the webinar was that the DoD is going to need to either adjust the type of defense force it seeks to have, including more realistic goals, or come up with a new plan altogether. Either way, the DoD may be falling victim to its own status quo of being a South African government-owned entity, meaning its compensation of all cost of employees is bloated, it is inefficient, and hardly meets its targets. DoD attempting to regain lost skills. The Department of Defense is making efforts to rebuild skills so it can be self-reliant and sustain itself and its capabilities, Defense Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula has said, with initiatives like the Defence Works Formation and Operation Tusano. Answering questions in the National Council of Provinces on the 17th of June, she said there are various disciplines on the SANDF that need to be developed because of the general skill shortage in the country. The skill shortage has had an effect in the main on the Air Force, the Navy, particularly Navy divers and combat officers, and the South African Military Health Services, and to a certain extent the Army. In order to mitigate the skills challenges, Mapisa-Nqakula said there are students training in foreign countries such as the UK, Zimbabwe, the USA, Cuba, Russia, Pakistan, and China. Mapisa-Nqakula said training covers professionals, technicians, plant and machine operators, pilots, and doctors. Earlier this month, student doctors graduated in Cuba and they arrived back in South Africa on the 21st of June. Mapisa-Nqakula mentioned Operation Tusano, which is seeing Cuban technicians maintain, repair, and preserve South African military vehicles. This has also resulted in more than 2,000 young people being trained as mechanics. Due to frustrations with the Department of Public Works, the SANDF in 2011 launched the Defence Works Formation to take care of its building and infrastructure maintenance needs. Mapisa-Nqakula said the SANDF is training artisans and electrical and mechanical engineers for the Defence Works Formation. Mapisa-Nqakula explained that a lot of skills in the SANDF have been lost over 25 years, but efforts are being made to try and get them back. Some of the skills which we have done away with post-democracy, we now realize we actually need. And it is the Defence Force that must work hard to make sure that we do have the capacity to do some of the things which we are currently outsourcing, she said. SA Navy Hydrographic Office marks 70 years of service. The crew of SAS Protea, affectionately and widely known as the SA Navy's White Lady because she is not armed, serve on the flagship of the Maritime Service hydrographic efforts. 21st of June was, along with winter solstice in the Southern Hemisphere, International Hydrographic Day, highlighting the importance of the branch of science and its continued relevance. This is especially true of South Africa, which is an ocean trade dependent country. SA Navy Assistant Hydrographic Commander Christoph Thiersen said South Africa, through the SA Navy Hydrographic Office, SANHO, proud to be a part of the day and uses it to commemorate the achievements and strides in developing and promoting hydrography. South Africa this year marks its 70th anniversary as a member of the International Hydrographic Organization, where former SA Navy hydrographer Abri Kamfer is now director. The SANHO was established in 1955, 4 years after South Africa joined the International Hydrographic Organization. In 1972, the SA Navy acquired its first purpose-built survey vessel, the then modern Hecla-class SAS Protea, still commissioned and in service. Protea was upgraded and modernized throughout her service life with the latest hydrographic and positioning technologies to stay relevant and produce world-class surveys. Project Hotel for the new hydrographic survey vessel for the SA Navy saw progress being made, with the new vessel currently under construction by Sandok Offshore Shipyards. It is projected to be delivered in June 2023 and will take over the hydrographic survey function from the aging Protea, which will be retained for training purposes. Soldiers tasked with border protection arrested. Proof there are still bad apples in every barrel comes with the arrest of soldiers deployed on the National Border Protection Tasking Operation Corona for doing what they are supposed to prevent. The arrests follow incidents in the Bay Bridge area of operations, with one going back more than 4 years involving stolen vehicles and corruption, and the other more recent and involving apparent transport of illegal cigarettes. 6 soldiers from unidentified bases in the Free State, Northwest and Northern Cape were, according to SABC News, arrested by the Hawks on the 22nd of June. They were allegedly convening with an international car smuggler syndicate to smuggle vehicles from South Africa to Zimbabwe during 2017 and 2019, when they were deployed around Bay Bridge border post outside Musina. The soldiers were reportedly charging the vehicle theft syndicate involved 15,000 rand per vehicle to cross the Limpopo River. The second bad apple incident saw 2 soldiers arrested for allegedly transporting illegal cigarettes in a military vehicle in June. They, along with an illegal immigrant, were arrested after police were tipped off about the illegal cigarette delivery. The soldiers were charged with the possession of illegal cigarettes, defeating the ends of justice, and resisting arrest. And in industry news, Denel Dynamics aims to pay 30% of June's salaries. After a salary warning for employees of the Denel Group, missile and UAV systems house Denel Dynamics is hopeful it will be able to pay 30% of salaries for June. In a memo to staff, Denel Dynamics CEO Baselo Nsashele on the 23rd of June said, although the financial situation remains highly constrained, management has received some money from a foreign client and will make an effort to pay 30% of the June 2021 salaries. With the other expected monies, we will endeavor to pay the outstanding salaries for April, May and the remainder of June 2021, he stated. Denel divisions and associated companies to date have a 12-month history of not meeting employee financial obligations, with an excess of 500 million owed to staff. Staff from different divisions within the Denel Group can be paid different percentages depending on each division's revenue for that month. In May, Denel Land Systems employees were promised 20% of their May salaries, while Denel Dynamics in April told its staff it was unlikely they were going to receive their pay. Thanks for listening to the podcast. For the latest leading and trusted news in defense, aerospace, and maritime security, like and subscribe to our social media channels. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and have the latest aerospace, defense, and security developments delivered to your inbox. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.